We are live there. We are live there. So now you should be able to share it. It should say that we're live now. There should be like a notification that says.
Oh, there you go.
And now share that to your personal page and your. Here you go. Click on this bad boy. Okay. And then hit the share button. That shares it to your feed, and you can say something if you want to be nice. You can say that I'm horrible for making you come on the show. Whatever you would like to say. Okay. And then I gotta share it to like 3 groups, and then we'll get started. Come on the show. Oh, goodness. Y'all didn't want to hear that for sure. Okay. So you got the easy part, because you just have to share it to 1 place. I have to share it to 9 places. So you can see yourself. Okay, share. Almost done, guys, and then I'll get started. Nobody ever really comes on right away anyway. Well, there's a couple people who jumped on right away. Share a group. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. TikTok, as always, you guys are here just to enjoy the ride. We won't be able to answer any questions from TikTok, but if you do have questions for Andrew, please hop on to my Facebook page, and we will be answering live questions on my Facebook page. If you just want to watch and enjoy the show, you can stay on TikTok. That's fine. Talking about home buying process. Okay, perfect. I think I shared it to enough places. Okay, did you figure it out?
I think so.
And then hit share now. There you go.
You got it.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, now you can put that away.
Perfect.
It's not going to be a distraction. Hi, friends. As always, my name is Miranda Taylor. I am a real estate agent. Hold, please. My mother shouldn't be calling me at 3. I have 2 children, so this is going to stop my talk show. I also think my daughter takes her phone and she just doesn't even care, so my daughter's probably trying to call me anyway. But anyway, as always, I'm a real estate agent with Kelly Realty. I started this talk show called Life, Love, and Real Estate because I think it's super important that everybody knows how awesome the Omaha community is, the small business owners, and I think it's important for people to have education. And there's so much stuff out there that nobody's educated on, so why not bring them on a show and ask a bunch of questions? Well, today we're actually going to be talking about real estate, and I have the amazing Andrew Dengel here. I had to literally force him to come on the show. But it's going to be great. We're going to talk about the home buying process and all things that are involved in that. We're going to be focusing on a bunch of really cool programs. So I'm going to let Andrew introduce himself and kind of say why he got into mortgage lending and that kind of stuff. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's the first time doing this, but my name's Andrew Dengel. I'm a loan officer here at CMG Financial. I got into this business after being in IT telecommunications for I think around 13 years, and just was looking for a career change, and just this kind of really fit the needs for me. I really like helping people, and just kind of got a little bit away from that for my last role, and so this really was kind of just a leap of faith to this industry, but it's really turned out really well for me, and I really like it. I really like working for CMG as well. We have a lot of great programs, as you know, and that's just kind of how I got the start. And then working through, most of my clients right now are first-time home buyers, so I get to do a lot, of education and, really educating buyers on, what actually it takes to buy a house, rather than, looking at, God knows what on the internet and saying, I might need 20%. That's not always the case. Everything is on a case by case with each buyer, but it's really fulfilling to just help people get into homes they never thought they could.
And that is actually one of the reasons why, I joke with you all the time, hey, you're number 1 on my list. One of the biggest reasons why I work with you is because I have some of the hardest cases sometimes, and when he says that it's a case-by-case basis, it really is a case-by-case basis. There's not a blanket statement that is true for every single home buyer and every single file that goes across your desk. And, you know, a lot of people, like, they want to achieve that American dream, and I like to make dreams come true. And when we met, I thought it was so awesome that I'm like, well, this is what I do, and it's like kind of sometimes a shit show. I hope you want to come along for the ride. And when you said yes, I was very impressed with how educated you are and the education-based process that you do have for my buyers, because the majority of my buyers are first-time home buyers or people who have no idea what it takes to buy a house. So
Right, yeah, and that's part of the fun with this kind of, I mean, just real estate in general. You never know who you're going to meet, and every transaction is always different. So it's never a dull moment anyway.
And you handle every single one of the clients with kindness, and you will literally look at every file, which I am thankful for that. It's really awesome that we have been able to partner so well. And one of the things that I think we've been utilizing really well together is Home Funded.
Yes. Home Funded is a great product. It's worked out well for, I think, 2 or 3 of your buyers right now.
Yes.
So Home Funded, which is really what I wanted to kind of talk about. It's a really underutilized product here. I think we need to do a better job of getting it out because it has so much power, especially for new home buyers or people who are starting life events, getting married, graduating college, things like that. But in a nutshell, Home Funded is basically a way to crowdfund your down payment. CMG takes care of all of the setup for basically a web page that you can set up any way you would like. You can have it geared more for a wedding, and you can share that QR code on your wedding invitations, and in lieu of gift, please donate to our down payment fund. It's all online. People can do it with their credit card or debit card, so it takes a lot of the guesswork out of like gift letters and a lot of the documentation process from it just streamlines the process where you can leverage social media, which is such a huge thing now, to generate a lot of additional cash that you may not have been able to have access before. It's something that's really important because with CMG also. So there's a couple different steps with Home Funded. Home Funded the first step in Home Funded, you need to take a first-time home buyer class, and we send that out. You send the link out to your clients, and then I also send it out. Basically, what that allows us to do is match $2 for every dollar donated up to $2,000. So if you're already going to get a gift, we're going to match $2 to every dollar as long as you take a first-time home buyer class before you go under contract. So that's really the biggest caveat to the whole program. Excuse me. You can use it no matter what. You don't have to take that first-time homebuyer class, but we can't do the match without that homebuyer class. So if you still want to crowdfund it and do it your own way, that's fine too. But I mean, we're willing to put up $2,000 to your closing costs for basically nothing. I mean, we're asking you to take a first-time home buyer class just to make sure you get a little bit of that first-time information and education. But yeah, so it's a really quick way to really maximize your dollars, whether it's a gift or social media.
And I will tell you, I've had like 2 clients that it worked out very well for them. One of the clients, I don't think anybody actually donated any actual money. That they just literally shared it.
Well, yeah. So that one that you're speaking of. So another part of Home Funded is if you share it, you can share it up to 1 time a day, and you get $10 per share. So if you get all of your social media network sharing that app, and that's $10 that we will get that you can earn up to $2,000 by basically just sharing it on social media. And yeah, I think they had maybe two donations.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, they got $2,000 by sharing it. They had all their friends do it, their family do it, and they were sharing it.
And the real estate agent.
The real estate agent. So it was a really great way for them to generate some extra cash. We also have what's called Up It. It's a different way that you can also raise money. Home Funded is partnered is strong, but if you shop for like Walmart or Petco, like big major retailers, you actually get a percentage back of those purchases that'll also contribute to that $2,000 kind of grant that CMG works with. So it's another way to help with that. One of the cool parts right now is when you first set up your Home Funded account, if you share it within the first 24 hours, you get $250. And then if you shop on Up It within the first 24 hours, you get $250. That's what's happening right now. I don't know if that'll be there forever, but it's a really quick way to get $500 cash that you can apply to closing that you didn't have before.
And the beautiful thing is, like, I think when I work with home buyers, one of their biggest concerns is always like, oh, I don't have, everybody thinks of a number. They're like, oh, I need like $30,000 for a down payment or whatever it may be. And they don't talk to anybody, right? They don't actually have actual numbers in their head. But like when you utilize programs like this, that down payment doesn't become an issue anymore. Like you never know who's actually going to support you through it too. My first client that used it, they're like, I don't even know who this person is, and they gave us like $500. So it's like one of those very unique ways where people can support people and help each other, and that's how you can get that down payment. And I teach a year to home ownership course that I created. Part of that is actually having them sign up for Home Funded, because no matter who you are, as long as you're comfortable. I know sometimes asking for money can be like a difficult thing for people to understand, or like they feel like it's icky, but really it's not, because people are literally just sharing it. Like they don't necessarily actually have to donate, they can literally just share, and you can get a little something towards that down payment. But it's part of that program because I think it's awesome. I think it was created more for like people who are getting married and things like that. Right. I think that was the vision or whatever, so that they had like the QR code at the wedding, but small business owners can utilize this, sticking that up in your shop. If you're a waitress, I know we kind of talked about this, like people who are in the service industry are sometimes difficult to, or like who are 1099 or like partly tips, cash tips, like anything that is like not just like a normal W-2 sometimes are really hard to figure out, and that is one way to get more down payment. So you're a server, you can just attach the QR code to your little book and tell the clients that come in, hey, instead of actually giving me a tip, would you mind just donating to my house fund? Like,
yeah, and what's nice about Home Funded also is there's no timeline, so you can set it up and not buy a house for a year. So it's something that'll stay with you, and that money that if you do get any donations, it doesn't go away. If like say that you don't buy a house, you will be able, you do still get that cash. It's just it'll stay in that account. There's some process to that on the back end, but that money just doesn't go away. But the timeline aspect is nice. So really gets people starting that process of saving for a down payment. It's a super easy way to do it. It's money that it stays in a separate account. So it's easy not to put your hands on it. It kind of is a completely separate rainy day account that is just there's no option for you to play with it or anything like that, which is nice. We've seen great success with this product. And it's applicable to every loan product except for bonded loans. That's the only caveat. So that would be like NIFA, IFA, things like that.
So for those of you listening that may sound like gibberish
yes.
to you, like an IFA loan or a NIFA loan or like Chenoa, there's a bunch of different ones. They're like other down payment assistance programs. So they basically, it's like a second lien on your property, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, Home Funded we can't stack with a bonded program.
So with that being said, sometimes Home Funded may not be like the best avenue,
right.
And that's where we talk about case by case. So if you are wanting to buy a house, there is a process and there's stuff that you have to do in order to figure out what you're approved for and all of that. And it's not a blanket statement for anyone. Like each case is different. So we can't go on here and like say, oh, you could qualify for this or this or this or this or this to like everybody, because that's not how it works. We have to look at all the things, like your file, your credit score. I said your file, oh my gosh. We have to look at like your credit score, like, what your DTI is, which is debt to income. So would you mind talking a little bit about like a qualified buyer? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't think I can buy a house because X, Y, or Z, like my credit score is too low or anything like that. What advice would you give to people that you legally can give who are wanting to purchase a home and don't think they're qualified, or maybe they don't know if they're qualified?
Well, I mean, it was starting just having a conversation, with me, or at minimum starting it with you, right? Like a realtor. It helps to, have a 2-year work history. Like there's several different like easy things that you can kind of tick off to where, like I think I'm ready to like, let's get a credit pull. Like let's actually look. I have X amount of money in the bank. And we can discuss all of that stuff too, right? We can talk about budgets and we can do a lot of rough calculations on the front end, but to really get down into, here's what, you can be approved for, you have to have all that information, credit report, assets to close, debt to income ratio, which, debt to income ratio, that's basically your debt from like credit cards, car payment, things like that, with the house included, and there's certain percentages that you have to stay within per certain loan products, right? A lot of loan products have very different ratios, which impact your rate and mortgage insurance and different things like that.
And that's why it's so variable. So, because there are so many loan products. There's not just like 2, 3, 4. There's a lot.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're looking to buy a house, it's not like there's only one kind of loan. Like, there's a lot of different stuff that, like, Andrew can look at. So, if you are thinking about doing this, like, come talk to us. Either one of us. Like, start there. Start with a conversation. Like, hey, I'm wanting to buy a house. Even if you're wanting to buy a house in, like, the next year or even 2 years. Like, and you want to get your, like, shit together, right? I tell myself every January 1st, like, I'm going to get my shit together this year. January 1st, I want to see an uptick of, like, inquiries coming to Andrew and I, because that is one of those things, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I can comfortably say this. I think owning a home is one of the easiest ways to start building wealth. Like, easiest ways. Because sometimes you can have little down, not very much down, all depends. But that money goes into the equity of your house, and I have never seen a house depreciate when somebody takes care of it. So if you're going to take care of that house, you can tap into your equity, like, years later. I know, like, I've been contemplating, like, doing a HELOC and things like that to buy, like, a different house or to, like, invest. Like, there's so many things that you can do with a property other than just, like, buy it and sell it, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, and also doing research, like if you're a veteran, what do you qualify? I mean, there are specific loans, VA loans, that, I've worked with people who didn't even know that was a thing, and so just having that conversation to begin and just kind of get a roadmap, even if you don't think you can do it within the next year or 18 months, at least we can get you on the right path. And give you several different options to pursue, right? There are loan programs like USDA loans. I mean, those are in certain areas of the state, but they have a lot of different benefits to taking advantage of those products. And a lot of it around how much you need to bring to the table for cash to close. There's down payment assistance loan programs out there, like KNIFE is a great one. That helps bring up to 5%. In a second lien for cash to close on a home, which you can, so it basically helps. It just helps bring additional cash. So there are some guidelines around that, and if it's something that somebody wants to explore, that's super easy to kind of get an idea and a feel for where they are. But it is on that case by case basis, and I'm happy to look at every file that that comes across the desk.
Well, and then the other thing that you do that I think is a little bit different than some of, and maybe all lenders do it, but I just think you do it at a different, like, Andrew's just a great human, okay? That is what it is. But you do it on a different level. Is like, I've had a couple clients where I'm like, ugh, this is iffy. Like, their credit score may be iffy or whatever. Like, I don't know if it'll even, like, where we should start. And starting with you is good because you can actually, like, see stuff and you give them tips on, like, what they need to do.
Yeah, so that's another reason that I love CMG, and I don't know other lenders or what they have access to for credit repair, but we have a certain tool that will tell me very detailed information on how to improve your credit. It's variable for everybody, and there are different reasons why people's scores are what they are, but oftentimes we can get a significant jump by using some of these tools that we have access to, and they're free of charge. So if you fill out an application with me and I pull your credit, that gives me a ton of information to help put you on the right track if that's the area that you need help in, right?
Right.
And I'm happy to do that with every client that comes in because that's probably one of the most important steps, is just making sure, depending on what you need to qualify for, what program you're looking to be in, credit score is pretty much step number one. And getting that kind of information and getting on the right roadmap, number one, it tells you, hey, you're ready to go right now, or maybe this is going to take you 6 months or 18 months. But we won't know until we do it. But that's what is really awesome about working here, is we have a lot of technology behind CMG and we leverage it very well, and it's really proven out to work very well for especially first-time home buyers or people who thought that they could never get into a home.
Well, and like another reason why we work really well together is like that is kind of the basis of like what my business model is I help people from the ground up. Like anybody who comes to me, even if they're not qualified, like I'll freaking help them build a resume, or I've had some people that literally just did not have the skills to, like, how to look for a proper job. Like, there's just so many things that come with, like, needing to have more income to buy a house. And so, like, when I have a client that needs those tools, I'm very thankful I found you, because a lot of credit repair places, they charge an arm and a leg for them to even, like, have a consultation with you or talk to you about what's going on. So unless somebody's like credit is like beyond, like where like beyond repairable or whatever, where they're gonna have to like file bankruptcy or anything like that, like I really do appreciate you pulling that and like doing those tools and like giving them a step by step. And the feedback that I've gotten from every client that has done that is that you're just awesome and that you just do a great job with that. So what we're saying is if you're wanting to buy a house, or it's a goal for you, it's part of your American dream, or whatever it may be, and you're scared because things are not in a good place, the first step is just figuring out what you have to do. So we'll help you do that. Sometimes it's surprising, because I think sometimes people think that they absolutely can't, and I look at their file like, go talk to Andrew, like, we're going to be fine. And then they talk to you, and they're, like, completely fine. I've had like 2 clients that were like that, which are the 2 that did the home fund it. But like that, I don't know. It's just a great feeling. So if you're scared or you're worried that like you can't qualify for something, just go check it out. Like just sit down and have a conversation. It's worth a 10-minute conversation. If you end up back in the same spot you were before, you're back in the same spot you were before. There's like literally no harm, no foul. I tell people all the time when they're like going to rent, my favorite thing to do is like browse Facebook, and anytime I see somebody talking about like renting a property, I'm like, well, let me know when you're ready to like try to purchase a home, because you're willing to pay $3,000 for a month for an apartment. Maybe you should try to look in owning a home. You might be happier. Favorite things to find, because a lot of people think there's a lot more to like home ownership than there actually is. It's really just a conversation and getting that ball rolling, and then once that ball's rolling, it just works out. and everything comes together, and then you're a homeowner. And yeah, things can go wrong with the home and things like that, and it's your responsibility at that point, but just store a little bit of cash away and it'll be fine. Like, I love home ownership. It's the best ever.
Well, and you do a lot of, you have like your own like step-by-step like home buyer process too.
Yeah.
It's pretty detailed from what I understand, so that helps people get on the right track as well.
Well, and I ask the same exact questions every single time. Like, I think education is so important. So, like, I don't want to just have a client, right, and just be like, okay, I'm your real estate agent. I'm going to take control of everything. You're going to have absolutely no idea what's going on in this transaction whatsoever. I'm going to make all the decisions for you. And at the end of this, you're going to own a home, but you're not going to know what to do. I don't know. No, that would make me feel sick. I would not be able to sleep at night if that's what my business model was. So I like to take them through and educate them. And like when we walk through the houses and everything, I like to be educated about like the properties too. Like, if we're walking into a house that was built in 1978 and I know the builder, and I like to know, like, okay, yeah, this was really popular during that time frame of homes. Like, this is something to look out for when we look in this home, or if I see something that I know is like an issue, I like to just be like, okay, like, look at this. Like, obviously I'm not an inspector, but this is kind of the stuff you want to look for. You want to look for the age of this and this and this. Like, you want to know how old the roof is. Here are the questions we want answered. This is what the disclosure looks like. This is what the disclosure does. These are your rights to the disclosure. And actually giving them that verbal so they understand what's going on versus just going through the motions. I also will always recommend an inspection. It protects everybody. It protects this person selling the property, and it protects the buyer. Especially when you're a first-time home buyer, yeah, sometimes you can feel like that desperation if you're putting in offers and everybody's not accepting them. Doesn't happen very often with me, just saying. But when you have those kind of feelings and that's like something you want to give up, that's like the last thing I would ever have anybody give up, because you have to have that education and that comfortability with that. And having an inspector go through and like reassure you that everything is okay, like, I don't know, education throughout, like, every step of the way. Like, every document, if somebody literally wants to know why, like, I will literally tell them why the document exists. And I just think it's important. It's important that you're educated on the process and how it works. It's important the type of loan that they have. Like, when my client has questions, like, I'll ask them in-depth questions too. Like, I don't talk to anybody like they're stupid, because nobody's stupid. Everybody's good at something else, but I will talk to them, like a normal human being and be like, okay, did you have a conventional loan, FHA loan, VA loan? Like, what were you approved for? Because sometimes people will come to me and they'll already have approvals, but they'll I'll know that they may qualify for other products that may be better for them. So, I'll ask them those detailed questions, and when they don't know the answer, I'll be like, okay, send me your paperwork, and then I'll tell them, like, okay, this is what this is. You need to ask the loan officer this question, this, and yeah, it's important to be educated and know what you're doing. So that's kind of my process, and that's why I ask all the questions I ask before we even get to actually looking at homes. I know sometimes people get really frustrated. They're like, why do I have to look at the financials? Or why do we have to look at this before we start looking at houses? Well, one, I don't get paid because I don't charge for my services. I don't get paid unless we actually buy a house. So if we're not answering these questions and I don't have a pre-approval and we start looking at a bunch of houses, from a selfish standpoint, like, that's my gas money. That's also their gas money. That's all those things. But there's also, we have to know all the things. We have to know what their budget is. Like, I make each one of my clients know a budget. Do I sit down with them and have to look in all the details? No. But I ask them what their budget is, because sometimes you can approve them for way more than what their actual budget is. Because if you have somebody who goes and spends, $1,000 at the Coach store every Saturday, they may not be able to afford the house that it looks like that they can afford on paper because of their shopping habits.
Yeah, all that stuff definitely plays. Yeah. Yes.
So that is why I do that before they even get to you. Because it's important that they know themselves and they know what their budget is. And sometimes they can keep a strict budget, but sometimes they have to also have some realistic expectations. If you have a $1,500 budget, that house, you may not be able to get the $300,000 house. Well, right now, I know for a fact you won't be able to get the $300,000 house. But we may be able to like pick and choose stuff. And I want to know like all the things that they want, right? If somebody wants to purchase a house, I want to know how many bedrooms, like what features they want. If somebody wants a pool, like that's a different price range. And if their price range doesn't match that, I like to be the person to tell them, hey, this is the realistic expectation. If we start looking at houses beforehand, before we have all those details and before we have that education, somebody's going to get heartbroken or hurt. And sometimes it's discouraging because they don't know what they can actually afford. So
yeah, that's what's so helpful about, coming to your loan officer, maybe not necessarily first, but that's really the only way that you can really break down, monthly costs and what's that look for your lifestyle. Do you want to take 2 vacations with your family every year? Is this house, might be approved for X amount, but is that the lifestyle that you'd like to live afterwards? That's something that I go over with my clients every time. I say, hey, here's where you're at. This is what you're asking for. What does that look like for your lifestyle? You know what I mean? Like I said, a lot of people, traveling is very important. So, you step up, in a house price that, increases your mortgage or adds, a certain amount of money to your mortgage every month. Now maybe you can't do that. And that's something that's very important to somebody. So that's something that I often spend a lot of time on is kind of talking about budget and not necessarily getting like super detailed, like in dollars and cents, but like how do you want to live your life? Like how does this house play into it? I'm just a numbers guy, right? I just want this to be financially smart for you. I treat every file of mine like it's my own or someone in my family's because personally that's just the way that I run my business and I think I just think that's the right way to do it personally. But spending that time doesn't cost anybody anything either. Like I'm happy to pick up the phone, I text, email, whatever medium you want to use. Ask me questions. I think you should be asking everybody as many questions as you can because as you mentioned, education is so important, right? I mean, you may qualify for a certain loan product, but like you said before, maybe another loan product befits you better. Maybe you get a better rate. Maybe you get some down payment assistance. There's several different ways to do this, and that's one thing that I spend a lot of time on also is, I look at the best situation, whether it's a more difficult loan type. For me, like the client doesn't see how it's all executed behind the scenes, but I'll do that. I'll say, well, okay, this is going to add a few more steps to the process, but it's well worth it for my client because that's how I would want to be treated, and that's I want to give my clients and my partners the most trust they can get out of this transaction because buying a house is stressful and sometimes it cannot be fun. And my goal and the way that I try and do it is make this as smooth and as fun of a process as you can because you're buying a house. Oftentimes it's your first house. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be exciting. And if you're just stressed through the whole process, that's not something you want.
It's not a good time. And, I've 40 transactions under my belt. I've been doing this a year and a half. I think it's maybe 45 now. I don't know. But something I've noticed, like in the beginning, when I didn't have all the processes that and the partnerships that I had in place, things were super messy. And sometimes things were super hard. And my goal was always that the client doesn't need to see that. Like, because sometimes we're pulling our hair out, like, behind the scenes, and they don't necessarily need to know that that's what's happening. But, I don't ever want to scare them. But, like, there is a lot of moving parts and the stuff that they don't see behind the scenes. Like, I don't just sit back and just do absolutely nothing. You don't just sit back and just do absolutely nothing. And when something that's difficult, like, goes through smoothly and works out great, it's phenomenal. But since I started working with you, I've noticed that, like, I'm a little bit less stressed because things do run a lot smoother because of that, and I think it's because of that open door of communication.
Well, yeah, and that's something that I carried over from my roles previous is communication is paramount. Even if it's a tough conversation with a client or a borrower, you've got to have it. You've got to have it. You don't want to be the last guy with a secret. That's not the way you want to run your business, because you're going to get all the way up to the closing table and something's going to happen. But if you have those conversations early and honestly, you can avoid a lot of the things that commonly pop up. Don't buy a car during your home buying process. Don't run up all your credit. There's a million different things that can happen.
There was this one time. Oh, okay. Since you said this is a PSA. Everybody listen. Do not put your 2 weeks in at your job.
Oh, yeah, don't quit your job. That's another good one.
Don't put your 2 weeks in. If you're moving somewhere else, do not put your 2 weeks in at your job until after closing. Because that happened. They put their 2 weeks in. Well, when they, the 2 days before they went to do, the final check or whatever, they call the employer. They're like, oh, he just put his 2 weeks in. And I'm like, I'm crying. I'm like, okay, do they get to buy the house or not? What's happening? And anyway, the solution was he goes back, says he's not quitting anymore. He had to sign an affidavit, and it's just messy. If that is in your plan or whatever like that, just don't do that till after. That was so messy. But PSA, don't buy a car, don't quit your job, don't make any giant life changes without contacting the loan officer, without contacting Andrew. Is this an okay decision for me to make?
That's all you got to do. But yeah, but those are the things that help, just being open and honest and just checking all those boxes, right? And some of those things are so easy just not to do, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if there's life emergencies or whatever, I get it, and we can work through almost anything, but it makes things a lot easier when you can just kind of have those discussions on the front end, avoiding those fires rather than having to put them out on the back end, when you're days away from closing and things like that. So
and I'm an over communicator, and I've always been this way. I always talk too much and things like that, but I'm I would rather do that than just not talk at all, or have a question and not get answered, and then it be a pivotal question that could have solved a million problems. So I just always ask all the questions, and if I have a concern or whatever, I just immediately concern, question, answer, done. That's you answer questions very well, which is nice. And you also, if you don't know the answer to a question, you say you don't know, but you'll find it, which that's what gave me a lot of respect for you, because not everybody is able to do that. I do that, but I have not met very many people who do that. Sometimes they just kind of talk out their ass, which is really, really nice. Also, for the people watching, if you guys do have questions, since we're talking about questions and communication, you can go ahead and put them in the comments on Facebook. Sorry, TikTok, you'll have to go over to Facebook to answer questions. It's just too far away for me to read. You can ask them at any time. I do see them on here, and we can answer any of the things that we have. And if we can't answer them, you can always contact us afterwards. Inside the event on Facebook, I will have my link tree that has Andrew's information. Also, we talked about Home Fund It. The crowdfunding and stuff will be on there too, so just keep that in mind. But back to communication, and answering questions. That was like one of those things that I'm like, ooh, you said you didn't know, which that is way smarter and more powerful than somebody just like having an answer to a question that's wrong.
Well, yeah, and especially, I've learned, in this industry specifically, especially from the loan officer side, there are things that cannot be fixed after they, if I give the wrong answer on something, there are times that it could jeopardize a close, it could jeopardize an approval. That's why, you're never going to hear me answer a question that I don't know the answer to, and I'll just say flat out, I don't know. But I'll find out, and then we'll have the answer, because it's just not worth it. It's not worth it, because like I said, in this industry, I mean, there are some compliance and regulations, regulatory stuff that you just can't get around, and that's a big part of the reason why we can't just spout off about rates and generalizations about different things about loan products and all these things, because it is so specific that you have to know that customer's profile to have those discussions, and then in that same vein, you just can't just say things like, oh yeah, this is the answer, and it's not the answer. Now you have a real problem. But yeah, and I have no problem with saying I don't know. I don't know why that's a thing so much. It's like I don't know. I'll find out. It's a learning experience. Nobody knows everything, right? And so I think that's a big. I don't know. Some people just like to feel that they have the answer, I guess, but. That's not for me. I'd rather have the answer.
Yeah, I would rather say I don't know, find the answer, and then like get all excited and be like, oh, this is the answer. Then just start saying like, oh, this is how you do this. Like,
or if it's not the answer that you don't want, now we know, and now we can figure out how to figure it out, right? Right. Like rather than waiting, to a point where there's no return. Now at least we know that there's an issue, and now let's figure it out, and we'll get that. You can get almost anything worked out.
And like as a real estate agent, sometimes like when you do make like dollar amount mistakes or like something in the contract, on the opposite side, you handle all the finances and stuff. But like if I don't write that contract right, like it can come out of my pocket. Like if you forget to add a 0 to a number or something like that. I've never done that, but like people are human, and that has happened before. Like I've heard horror stories of people having to pay out like $11,000 and things like that, or like forgetting to put like $6,000 in like concessions on a document, and I'm like, you ask yourself how, but things happen, people make mistakes, but that is the reality of like our kind of businesses is like mistakes that we make have lots of repercussions. Sometimes on ourselves, like sometimes our license can be, revoked if you make dumb decisions. And sometimes, like, we have lots of power, and that kind of power can really hurt somebody on the other end. We're dealing with people's money, finances, livelihoods, like.
Where they want to live, their dream home. Like that's the thing for me that, that's why I work very, very hard to be, as close to 100% right as you possibly can be. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, somebody planning on moving into a dream home or their first home, it may not, and to have a mistake that you've made be an issue. Why, they couldn't do it or there's a multitude of different things that can happen. But the good part about all of this, having said all of like the scary part of it, have the conversations early. Let's start the process early. Get yourself in the best possible position to where we can just skate to close. And that's why I don't mind spending any amount of time, whether you're looking to buy in 18 months, 2 years, tomorrow. I'm here to answer the questions and help you, guide you to the best possible place as soon as you can get there, or as soon as you want to get there.
Right.
It's your life, right?
And there's not really like a forcible timeline. Like I'm kind of aggressive, but not necessarily like aggressive about people purchasing a home or anything like that. I'm an intense person, but like I'm not going to force somebody to buy a house. I'm not going, like I set up my little thing and it's their timeline. The client is 100% in charge of how things go. And like even with getting paperwork in. But once you're in contract, like anything that Andrew asks for, you have to give it to him immediately. Otherwise, we could be postponed days. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, after you're under contract, like any documents that anybody needs, you have to get them in a timely manner because it can push out days. I had one, this wasn't with you, but I had one person who like always questioned like why the loan officer needed everything, and I was like, okay, you can't question why, you just got to give it to them. I'm like, they're going to find it anyway, and anything that we don't get them and we find out later, like it can stop you from purchasing the home. So just give all the things that they need and do it in a timely manner.
Well, and in that same kind of talk track, you know, sometimes it does feel uncomfortable for things that we have to ask for, you know, and there's not an option that, I mean, we either have to have it or we can't move forward, but still ask the question on why. It doesn't bother me to explain why we need this, you know, document or why we need this letter of explanation for X. I'll explain it to you because there's a reason for it. We're not out here. We're not out here asking for all the docs that just for fun, for sure. Because you know we're trying to fast track and make this as stress-free as you possibly can. But you know it is sometimes uncomfortable when you have to explain why something happened, and I understand that. I get that 100%. So ask the questions, but you know I'll have the answer why we need it. And you know, if it's a non-negotiable thing, then you know we'll have that conversation. And like you said, getting it, you know, taking care of that stuff in a timely manner. You know, if there is something that pops up, it gives us a much better chance to stay with the timelines. You know, close on time for their house, or if you're selling a house, you know, getting everything done at the same time and in the right order is really important. So I know sometimes it does feel like a lot, but it is worth it, and there is always a reason why we're asking for something that somebody may not want to give. And
like with that being said, like we usually, like I give people a little brief, like here's like 6 things that you want to have ready when you talk to Andrew, or and like your application asks for a lot of that stuff too, but you know, having, like, letting them know ahead of time that they're going to have their divorce decree, they're going to have this or that, or, like, those things that are kind of, like, off the wall and maybe, like, why would you need that, you know? I had somebody that they needed somebody's high school diploma, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense, but sure, whatever, give it to them. But just all those things that you need, we always have, like, ready to go. And I'm, again, being forefront about everything that has to happen, and that education piece is just kind of how I run my business. And with that being said, I wanted to circle back and talk about bonded loans for a second. So you're like, oh, this is scary, Miranda. No, a lot of those programs are really awesome, and a lot of people don't know that they exist. So I just wanted to kind of touch base a little bit more on that, because I know at least one person watching this right now, I know that they were contemplating, like, not even looking at buying a home, just because they didn't think that there's, like, really that much assistance out there. So, bonded loans, talk about them.
So the main one that I think gets brought up the most, specifically to Nebraska, is called NIFA. They do them in multitude of different loan types. I mean, you can do VA. You can do conventional FHA. There's down payment assistance. There's not down payment assistance. So there's just a lot of different options. But basically, what the idea of them are to either A, assist with down payment, so closing costs, cash to close, because you can't just go take a personal loan out, and I guess you could if you made enough money, but this doesn't necessarily. Basically, the cash to close, the 5%, it's 5% of the purchase price for cash to close for down payment assistance, where it's on a 1% second lien so that rolls into your monthly payment. But then you can use that cash for cash to close. And there's some other great options in that same vein, but the idea is to make home ownership more attainable for people who, who don't, for lack of a better term, who don't think that they can get into a home.
Well, and on top of that, like, as your realtor too, not only do you have options for bonded loans, like if you qualify, right? If you meet all the requirements, every case is different. But you also have a really good real estate agent, and sometimes they can get concessions from the seller. So there are so many different avenues. Where I was going with this is there are so many different avenues to help you with that down payment. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a product like Home Funded or a product like NIFA or like a product like Genoa. I know you don't like that much. Or a product, of just me going up to the seller in the contract being like, yo, we need the max amount, which depending upon what loan you do is a different percentage. We need the max amount of percentage that you can offer for the client because they're nice. And sometimes it works. So if you think there's no hope, because I get that a lot, that's false. There is hope. There are options. There are so many programs out there that you can take advantage of. And the reason why I wanted Andrew on the show today is because he has kind of the same viewpoint as I do, whereas like everybody deserves homeownership. And we're a great team and we're willing to help. So like, you know how I told you, like, just think about the one thing that you would want like 1,000 people to know. My one thing that I want 1,000 people to know is that it starts with a conversation, and don't shut yourself down or say no just because you think it's not possible. Because I've seen some really impossible things happen. And I'm not going to toot my own horn or anything. Oh, hell yeah, I am. But, I've made some miracles happen, and I've been able to make some miracles happen because of partnerships like working with Andrew. So don't just shut yourself down and say no. Like, please come talk to us. Everybody watching right now that is thinking about buying a home, like, it's a conversation. It takes 5 minutes. Literally takes 5 minutes to open that door and have that conversation. Any concerns you have, you can just spill them out, and we can start navigating that and figuring out a pathway for you. Like, there's never, I always tell people there's never just like a blunt no. Like, I'm never just going to tell somebody no. I'm going to say, well, we can't do it right now, but this is what we need to do. Or here are the steps you need to take. Between either of us, we'll be able to make a pathway for somebody to achieve that goal.
Absolutely. The roadmap is just key to everything, especially if you don't think that that home ownership is attainable.
No.
I think a lot of folks just put it up on such a high pedestal, and I need to have X, Y, and Z to make it happen, and it's just not the case. I mean, there are so many different. I mean, there's different grants. We don't really do a lot in grants, but I mean, if you take some time,
I have a list.
Well, if you take some time and do some research, I mean, there are several grants, whether it's VA. I mean, there's a million different grants out there that if you take the time and research and like write a paper, I mean, there's ways to that's down payment specific, funds or whatever. But there are options out there, and it's just important to start the conversation with somebody who knows where they're at. And you can do research on your own too. I mean, Knife has a website. You can check that out. You can come to my link. I'm sure it'll be in the bio. I mean, there's payment calculators. There's all kinds of different options for you to learn more about Home Funded. I mean, there's several different options. A lot of resources. You just got to start the conversation or know where to look, right, and kind of go from there. And it doesn't cost anything, right? No. It's just all it does is take a quick 20 minutes of your time on a phone call or text or email or whatever you prefer, and you get a really good feel for, am I ready now? What does it look like? How long does it take? Like you said, it's almost never just like, nope, that's it. That's the end of the story. It's like, not right now, but here we check these few boxes, then we'll be ready.
And I have like 80 people going through some form of like pathway or like credit repair or like whatever they, like off the top of my head, like I could probably list their first names, like they have spoken to me and like they're not ready to buy, and I'm not gonna like, I think sometimes people think that once you talk to like one of us, it's like, okay, now that has to happen, or like we're gonna like, I don't know why people, I do know why, but I'm not gonna say it live on camera, but I don't, like, you shouldn't have the negative connotation that real estate agents or loan officers are gonna like sink their teeth into you and like force you to do something or like not be on your side. Like every single one of my clients that comes on board with me, you know, I treat them like their family. Like, I'm like a cockroach. You're never going to be able to get rid of me. I'm just kidding. That's a bad analogy. But a lot of my clients, once I have them, like, they have me for life. Like, I am a forever resource to them. I am a forever friend. I'm a family member. Like, whatever they want to consider me, however they want to use and abuse me, I'm all for it. I'm not a transactional human. So that's how I treat every single one of the clients that comes across my way, is like, yeah, what resources do you need? How can I help you? How can I support you? You know, anybody who works with me, like on a partnership level too, it's like, how can I support you? What can I do to help? And I like that that's your viewpoint as well, is like, we are here to help. We are not here to hurt you or do any sort of harm. We want to help you achieve your goal or whatever dream you have. And my goal is if I get you in your first home, I want to see you get that next big purchase once you start popping out children, or whatever it may be. Maybe you don't pop out children. Maybe you just want a big mansion because you're single and you have all sorts of money. You don't have to put it towards diapers. Whatever it may be, like, I want to be a part of that. And I want to, you know, I want to be able to see your Christmas card every year and see how much your family grows. Like, that is, to me, that's what my job is about. My job is building those relationships, sustaining those relationships, and basically creating the family I never had with people who come in and out of my life. So yeah, kind of cool. Do we have any questions? We're getting close to the hour mark. You made it. You didn't throw up.
I didn't die.
You did not die. What else? What are some final thoughts that you have? What is, again, your one thing that you want thousands of people to know?
Well, I think I pretty much covered the one thing, and I think just to sum it up, the one thing is this is doable for a lot more people than think that it is, and it starts with just a conversation. That is the one thing I think I want people to understand. Just if you have questions, or if you just want to see like a maybe, like, hey, is this a thing? Just ask. It doesn't cost you anything. It's not going to be a giant invasive process. It's a few questions, you know, and we can get a lot of information off of that. And that's really the one thing that I want people to understand is I'm here to help. You know, I'm here to help you get into a home that is financially a smart decision for you from a budgetary perspective. That's my goal. I want, and to make it as easy of a transaction as possible. That's it. And, you know, the numbers that you see on my contact information, I mean, that's my personal cell. I mean, you text me, and, you know, if I'm awake, you're gonna get me. You know, and it's just important to have people in your corner. You know, you see a lot of, you know, I won't. Yeah, but you just see a lot of stuff sometimes where you're just like, man, how did that happen, or where did that information come from? And you know, there are people out there who just want to help, and they don't want anything from it. You know, it's like, if it works out and you move forward, great. You know, if not, you know more now than you did before, and you could try it again in you know, whenever you feel like it. But that's pretty much what I would say is that one thing that I want people to know.
Absolutely. And the other piece of that is, not everybody has to have 20% down.
Yeah.
Just get that number out of your head and pick up the phone and call and see what it actually is realistically for you personally. You know, we can't talk rates because every single person who comes across a desk, they have a different rate. they have a different rate. Somebody named Kayla Thompson said great info. I'll be using Andrew going forward.
Nice.
So any questions that you have about these things, like, you can pick up the phone and call either of us. Both of our personal numbers are public knowledge. Which is fine. I get calls all day, every day, and I answer every single one of them. Sometimes they're telemarketers. But it's very important that if you want to find that kind of information, or you want to start this process, please don't be scared to contact them. I'm not scary, I promise. Sometimes I laugh obnoxiously and say the F word, but I promise I'm not scary. And Andrew's not scary at all. He's like the sweetest human being I've ever met in my life. So if you have questions, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can check the link in my bio. I'll also put it in the event itself. And Andrew's information's in there. Everything that we talked about, there is some form of information in there about all of the things. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And I think it was a great show. We did a good job. So
There you go.
I will go up closer to the camera and hit the end button. But thank you all for watching, and I hope everybody has a good day. You guys get to see my face.